All right, well, we're back here with the 1948 Farmall Cub engine block, and we're putting in pistons today. So I've got number 1 and number 2 already in. The crank is, of course, on the other side. These two have already been inserted and torqued onto the crankshaft. So now we're going to put in number 3, and I'm going to show you how that works. So what I have here this is my number 3 piston. In fact, this is the one that I got from eBay, and this is the piston compressor tool, and it's just a very thin piece of sheet metal that's wrapped around with this ratchet, and it has a little Allen wrench that you put into this spot right here to tighten it up. So I've got the rod already hooked up, and you can see I've got the new bearing on there. So I started this project a couple of days ago, and so what I'm going to have to do is gently clean out, get my rag here. I got to gently clean out this bearing and then put some new lube on it before I stick it down in that hole. I also wanted to mention, you can see right here, there's nothing on this side, but on this side is a number 3 stamped in right here. I don't know if you can see that. A number 3. That means it's cylinder number 3, and the number needs to go towards the camshaft, which in this case is down that way. So when this goes in the hole, it's going to go in like this. And the first thing I got to do though is, well, I already lubed this one up, so it should be in good shape. I'm going to put some new fresh lube down in these 2 cylinders so we can finish this job. So my lube here for the cylinders is just some 30 weight oil, and just smeared it down in here to get plenty of lubrication between the cylinder and the piston itself once it gets down in there. I'll go ahead and do the other one too. It's just to lube the hole that this is all going in, so that the new rings don't have to fight too hard to get down in there. Okay, and then I'm going to re-lube the bearings, and I'm doing that right here just by getting some oil on my finger, and I'm trying real hard not to get any little specks of dirt or sand or any of that kind of stuff in here, because this bearing material is pretty soft, and you just don't want to get any junk in there that might cause problems by scoring the bearing. So number 3 right there, I'm going to point that down, and we're going to slowly put this in the hole. And I'm trying real hard not to hit the sides of the cylinder with any of that. I'm trying to get this straight up and down. And you can see with this device on there, it goes down in there pretty well. So now I've got to, before I use this, I'm going to tap the piston so that it goes down in the hole. And to do that, I'm just using a wooden stick and a rubber hammer. And I just want to go nice and slow. And you also want to make sure that you get past, get the piston beyond the edge here so that your rings aren't exposed, and then this piece just kind of comes out. So you can see there's the finished piston down in the hole. Now the next step is to go on the other side and tap this in further, and we also want to lube the journal on the crankshaft, the rod journal, and make sure that that's got plenty of lubrication on it as we then put in the cap. And I'm going to do the same thing. This is the cap that goes on the other side of that, and I'm going to, since this has been sitting for a little bit, I'm going to gently wipe this, and then I'm going to re-lube this surface. Looks good. I'm going to reach back here and just dab a little bit more motor oil in there, and I'm slathering that on there, and we'll have that ready for the next step when we get to the other side of this. But for right now, I'm gonna manage the other side of this. The problem is you gotta, at least for me, you gotta sort of get down on your hands and knees, and we're tapping this in, and I want to make sure that up under here that we don't get hung up on the crank itself. We want to make sure we get over the top, because I'm at an angle. The crank is going to want to, yep, already ran in. So now I'm going to have to go up the other direction. Okay, now I'm over the top. I feel it with my finger. I'm just going to tap this down a little bit. Okay. Looks real good. Keep going down. All right. Looks like we're there. All right. These are supposed to be torqued to 16 foot-pounds. And that doesn't sound like very much. And it's a 1/2 inch socket. So I'm going to run it up with my little socket here, and then I have a torque wrench down here that's already set that will tighten that up too. Now on this piece here, we got to make sure that the number 3 on this one is also facing the correct direction. Now that's very important. So we're going to make sure this journal is lubed sufficiently. So I'm going to put this cap on the bottom with the number facing the camshaft. Bolts have a flat side on them, so I just got to make sure I got the flat side on the right side. also need to go all the rest of the distance down here so that I seat this. There we go. Alright, so now I'm going to put the cap on under here, checking it to make sure there's no material on it. My number 3 facing the right direction, and there we go. These little screws have, they're sort of like, these nuts are sort of like castle nuts. They have cuts in them all the way around, so they sort of act like a lock nut. And you just got to make sure and get those on the right direction. I want to make sure the cuts are towards the end of the bolt, not up against the part you're screwing in. So we're going to run these up a little. Looks like we got that. Now we're going to torque them. 16 pounds. And there we go. It just feels like you could tighten them a lot more than that. But, you know, we're going by what the instructions say. So 16 foot-pounds. All right, we have one left to do. Let me just turn the camera around here so you can see how we put this thing inside the ring compressor tool. This tool is kind of difficult because it's spring loaded. Man, if you just push this thing goes boing and it all just comes apart. So you gotta get your hand in there and back it off a little, and then you lift up, and then you want to hang on to this, and just, you can see how it's opening up, and then you want to put the locking mechanism down again, and then get that all leveled out. So we got the last piston here that we're gonna put in. I've got the keepers in here, and again I've got the rings. This is the oil slinger, this is the intermediate ring, and then the upper ring. And as I mentioned before, these have to go in a certain way, so make sure you look at your instructions about how best to put those in. I'm going to lube this whole piston and these rings before I put that on there, so that this is all lubricated once it hits the cylinder, so that it can slide down where it needs to go without. And I'm going to oil it, smear the oil down right to the edge of the, almost to the edge of the skirt, and being kind of liberal here with the oil. And then I'm also going to put oil inside this end of it, of this device here, just to make sure that everything is lubed really well. Now the hardest part here is trying to get the piston inside this without having the rings get exposed. So you got to open it wide enough so that it fits. Of course, I've got it the wrong way, so we got to put it this way. And then it's just difficult, given all the geometry of this thing, to tighten this gizmo up and I put it down to about where the rod pin is. And then you got to sort of hold it in place while you tighten it. And then again, you have to tighten it quite a bit because you want to get your rings well inside so that you can pop this thing down. All right, I got a little ahead of myself here because we haven't put the bearings in this one yet. That freaked me out here. So this is the little box of bearings. And again, you don't want to drop these. And you don't want to scratch them. And just lots of things you got to be careful of. So they're wrapped in plastic, as you can see. And so I'm just going to cut the plastic slightly without getting all the way to the bearing. And then just peel back this plastic stuff. And again, you just don't want to drop these. Fortunately, I did that over this, so we're in good shape. So there's one. I'm going to get this other one open. You see, by this time your hands are all greasy, which makes it even harder. We'll get this off so we can snap these into place. So a couple things to notice here. Notice, I'm trying to get this so you can see it, but if you see right here, there's actually a little dimple on the inside of the ring, and that is the little snap job that snaps in, and there's a little, I don't guess there's any ridges on the back side of this, but these snap into place. And so what I'm going to do is just wipe out the inside of this where the bearing went before. Actually, that's the old bearing still in there, so we're going to have to peel those out. Very small screwdriver. Goes right in this little notch right here. And they just pop right out. These bearings are really worn, these old ones. And so we're going to pop the new one right in its place. Just going to wipe this out to make sure there's no foreign material underneath the bearing. And we got to get, you can see the little divot right there. That's what holds that little tag that we looked at in this other bearing. Now what I found to be the hard part here is a lot of times when I put these bearings in, they end up being short on one side and long on the other. And you can sort of straighten that out after the fact, but it's kind of hard and it's a little bit tricky. So my thought is you start them on the tag side here. So that little tag right there fits in the little groove that's made for it. And then you pinch this down so it doesn't move. And then you push on the other side and on the bottom. So that's the new bearing, putting it in. And there's a little bit of information in the manual about how once you put these around the journal or the crankshaft, that this will even itself out and squeeze in where it needs to, and you don't have to worry about it. So, okay, so that's the cap piece. Now we're going to put the bearing on the other side. Of course, we got to still get the bearing out of this. Should have done this before I put the tool on there, but it'll be fine. So what we're doing here is we're sticking the screwdriver in, same idea, and we're just going to peel out the old bearing and it comes right out. Almost right. There we go. All right, and then we're gonna wipe that out so that that's in really good shape. And we want to clean out the little where the tag goes. All right. So we're going to do the same thing on this one. We're going to start this at the top, right about flush with the top with the little tag in the little groove. And then we're going to hold this side and push down on this side. And sometimes you can feel a little snap when it gets down into place, and so that's kind of cool. All right, so we got our bearings in. So first thing I'm going to do is lube up. We're going to turn this around here so we can see the machine again. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lube the journal on the crankshaft for this final piston. Just make sure that there's plenty of lube in there. So that's good. I think the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to slowly turn the crank so that this journal is down at the bottom, or at least halfway, well, down at the bottom instead of at the top. You know what, I'm just going to leave it the way it is. So it's going to look like this piston here. We're only going to put it in just so the rings get below this lip of the cylinder, and then that should be, we should be right in the middle and be able to put on that that bearing cap down there at the bottom. All right, so we got to get these screws, the bolts on here the right way. And again, there's a flat side. You want to make sure the flat side is where it needs to be so that it holds these bolt heads so that they don't turn. So we've got that, and I'm going to lube this bearing. Wipe my hands off real good first, and we're going to put some lube right in here. Make sure there's no foreign material in there. I think we're in good shape. We're going to locate the number 4 right here, and that's going to go facing down because our camshaft is down here beyond the valves. So we're going to slide this in just like this. Okay. So we got that in. I just want to make sure that it's coming in straight. And it looks real good down here. So we're going to do tap it down through this tool, and just move this so you can see a little better. I think we got to tighten this a little bit. And this is the problem I had on the first two, is trying to get this tight enough. There we go. I think that worked out really well. It just seemed to bind up a little bit because it's several layers of sheet metal going around. It kind of binds. It's kind of hard to get straight and get on there. So we're moving again. And Here we are. All right. So now we're going to lube up this last bearing cap, and the bolts are already on this. So we're going to go on the other side here. You get the number facing the camshaft. And that's it right there. Forgot to find the nuts. All right, well, welcome back. It took me a few minutes, but I got those two nuts on the bolts on the bearing cap on this cylinder number 4. So I've spun the engine a little bit and everything moves the way it should. I'll go back at some point and retorque all those nuts to make sure they're what they ought to be. So you can see here on the top, you can see the cylinders, and you can see the pistons all in there. So this is the front of the engine. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Notice that each cylinder has 2 valves. The small one is exhaust, and the 2 larger ones are the intake. So 4 exhausts and 4 intakes. This hole right here is where the oil filter goes. So I'm going to turn this engine over so you can see what it looks like on the bearing side, just to take a look at it. So hang on one second here. All right. All right, so now you're looking down inside. You can see the 3 red bearing caps. Those are the crankshaft bearings. And then you can see the 4 caps, these 2 in the center. So that's number 2 and number 3. This one over here and this one over here is number 1 and number 4 over here. So I'll go through and torque those up again, and that's what our crank looks like with the bearings installed, both the crankshaft bearings and the rod bearings. So it looks like we're making some progress here, and we'll get this moving on to the next step here pretty soon. One thing I want to mention